very good afternoon to you, Mr. Baruddin. Are these huts going to stay? Do they have a future, or are they at risk of being removed?
That these huts have a historical significance in the city, but also in the immediate community. And a few years ago, 2016, 2017, an effort was undertaken to actually remove some of the huts at that stage. But because of community unhappiness, the process then stopped. The city then invested quite a significant amount of money to repair and renovate some of those boxes so that they were up to usable standard again. But 3 years later, we're seeing that the very same boxes that we maintained are now again in the same very derelict state that requires very urgent attention from the city, but importantly, in partnership with the community. And so the future of the boxes are currently being discussed at the moment, whether or not the footprint as it currently exists is to remain, or whether we need to optimize the number of boxes at the community so that we can still retain the boxes because of its aesthetic significance and historical significance in the Muizenberg community and that of the city as well.
What makes them hazardous, though, Mr. Baruddin? I mean, there's obviously a call for them to be removed because they're hazardous. What makes them hazardous?
Absolutely, and it goes without saying that there are a number of factors that need to be considered here. There's a growing homelessness crisis in the city where homeless people have now found shelter in these boxes overnight. Some of our boxes in the St. James area have been burnt down. These boxes have also, unfortunately, become drug dens where people use drug dens. 1 or 2 suicides have taken place in these facilities, but also at the same time, the environment in terms of the weather conditions on that particular side of the coast causes the rapid deterioration of the boxes because of the type of wood that is being used. So even though the boxes footprint initiated in the early 1800s, these are not the same boxes that are found today. They've been replaced a number of times in the Muizenberg community. At this moment, the boxes are made up of pine wood that is particularly vulnerable to the sea and the wind and the salt, especially on the Muizenberg coastline.
Them being used for shelter by homeless people and them being used by drug dealers as drug dens, one would say is a case for the city to make sure that this is dealt with appropriately, that you actually provide housing for homeless people, and that you clamp down on drugs being dealt in these iconic huts. What's the city doing to make sure that these huts remain as what we know them for?
Absolutely. And so we think about the intent of these huts, and as you've described, they are for the purposes of changing and for storage of whatever beachgoers may bring to the beach that day. In terms of the city's responsibility when it comes to the enforcement and the safekeeping of these spaces and of the residents who use these spaces, we do it at the moment. We have law enforcement there present quite regularly to patrol those areas. When I visit the areas as well, law enforcement's presence is very visible, and they also engage with the community and those who may be around that pose a potential risk. But at the same time, we must be mindful of the fact that there exists about 100 of these boxes across a significant stretch of the coast, and the city wants to retain them. The city wants to retain it and maintain it so that residents are able to use it as well as tourists. So that's important, and that is ongoing, but you can imagine that it's impossible almost to put one law enforcement officer per hut because there are a number of serious crises that happen in the city that require their services. In terms of the homeless crisis, this is a matter that's ongoing. I engage very regularly with my counterpart, Minister Shana Fernandez, the Minister for Social Development in the province, and the city is quite serious about rolling out additional safe spaces that we have at the moment and increasing the bed numbers in our city together with province where the responsibility lies. But it's also critical to keep in mind that the homelessness crisis is a growing crisis, especially because of our economic climate, as well as the climate that COVID has now presented to us, which poses significant, I would say, disadvantages or for a number of people because of what is happening in our community at the moment.
You've spoken about the habitation of these huts by homeless people and, of course, the occupation of them by drug dealers. But speak to us, if you can, about what takes to maintain these huts, to make sure that they stay the attraction that they are.
Absolutely. So the maintenance is in itself not easy, specifically because of the type of wood that is used that deteriorates very rapidly, as I mentioned, because of the salt and wind conditions on that particular coast. So it's not just a simple splash of paint on wood, it's the actual replacement of the wood infrastructure of these huts that get stolen very often as well. The fires that take place under these huts, sometimes by people who use these spaces, is also very serious. So we have a maintenance team in the city that is able to manage some of these demands, but unfortunately is not able to keep up with the demands. And so therefore we're very mindful of what we as a city are able to do. And so we are now saying to our residents on that side, and I'm very grateful to see that there are residents who have already made the call to partner with the city to be able to maintain these infrastructure. But we're appealing to have an open mind that perhaps the best way to retain the quality in which it should be to be representative of the city would mean that we reduce the number of huts so that it's better to maintain, better to manage with our partners, and at the same time ensure that we don't lose the cultural significance, the tourism, economic significance, as well as the aesthetic significance that these huts help with the city, and especially now as we prepare to open again and welcome tourists back to Cape Town.
Mr. Badruddin, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. He is Zahid Badruddin, the MMC for Community Services and Health in the city of Cape Town.